Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video about Trump and Biden and AI and the single neuron that all three of them share, and it's damaged. And there's only one. There's only one that's it's rough. It's rough being president or former president and future president, and being unable to think straight because of a variety of reasons, or being ChatGPT or OpenAI, and the new Google AI search and all search engine search and Facebook. It's hard being, you know, uh, the only functioning or the barely functioning brain cell that is running all of the social media companies, all of the tech world, all of Western civilization, and also being president. You know, it's tough. It's tough. But that one broken neuron is doing the Lord's work. That one broken neuron doing an amazing job. Uh, the reason why I wanted to go into this is, there's several reasons, but one of the things that inspired me to kind of I was like, what am I gonna do today? Was for the YouTube stream, but one of them was well, obviously there's the recent news that Google is going to be rolling out AI powered search at a huge level. There's a possibility that the list of websites, like traditional search engine functionality, where you get you ask Google, hey, how do I make a risotto or whatever, and it gives you links from recipe blogs, right? Or you ask Google, who was the 8th president of the United States, and it gives you Wikipedia, it gives you encyclopedia entries, right? And it just gives you existing links and websites produced by humans, researchers, journalists, governments, individuals, etc. Right? And it just gives you a list. That's what search used to be, right? Where you have a list, and this is actually like going to be very important because this is how most people find information right nowadays. Majority of the population, world population, finds information by entering it into a text box somewhere on a phone, on a computer, right, on a laptop, a desktop. They enter information into a text box of some kind. It might be Google, might be Bing, it might be whatever proprietary whatever your Samsung or your Huawei or your Apple phone search engine is using. You enter that information in, and then it returns results, right? Um, and that kind of seems it kind of seems like, well, you can almost forget that there was a time where people didn't do that. Like, that was a technology that was brought about in the 90s. Like prior to Google, there was Alta Vista. If you for those ancient antediluvian eldritch millennials like myself, and obviously Gen X and older, will remember that there were web crawlers, right? And that was when it was a new technology that could they had to actually crawl the web every so often, and you would actually notice sometimes when the search results would update. There was a point in time where there were like less than 1,000 websites on the internet, right? And so there was a lot of information wasn't on the internet, right? So when you searched, like way back in the day, Yahoo search, America AOL, back on the days of AOL, like just to give you an example, in the 90s, it started in 1995. Just it was one of the earlier ones, right? It became one of the most used early search engines, lost ground at Google, and was purchased by Yahoo in 2003. It retained the brand, but Alta Vista searches on its own engine. In July 8th, the service was shut down. So, and it actually was High View, Upper View in Spanish, Alta plus Vista. And it was originally created by researchers at Digital Equipment Corporation's Network Systems Laboratory and Western Research Laboratory, who were trying to provide services to make finding files on the public network easier, right? So this was like the public internet network, right? So this is going all the way back to the beginning of the internet, and obviously in Palo Alto, California, is where this happened. And like Craigslist, this ancient website Craigslist, goes all the way back to its origins, were also 1995. It actually looks a lot like Alta Vista, right? And I think Craigslist is still used sometimes today, but it's a basic HTML text, basically very plain HTML text-based format that came out around the beginning of the, they used to call it the information superhighway back when Al Gore invented the internet. I'm just a joke. But so at that time, most people were still using newspapers. So I think, for example, if you wanted to get information, if you wanted to find a car, right? I remember doing this. I didn't do this because I was 12, but I remember my dad opening up a newspaper. Remember those things? These like pieces of big, 2 foot long, 1.5 foot wide pieces of flattened tree bark, and they had like, black powder or liquid squirted onto them. It's called paper. I don't know if anybody remember those. So newspapers, anybody remember those? Except for people who spend $50 on one at Starbucks. The New York Times. Some people still buy physical. Some people still buy those physical newspapers at the Starbucks. But you had to open a newspaper. You had to search in the newspaper physically, turning pages, to find the section on used vehicles, right? To find the used vehicle section in the Craigslist, in the newspaper. And then, there will also be things like, jobs. If you want to find a job, right, you have to look up in the newspaper for job listings, right? And it'd be like data entry, auto mechanic, typesetter, phonograph technician, the kinotrope projectionist. Maybe that was 1800s, but you had to look up your jobs. If you wanted to get a job, if you wanted to find a car, transportation, if you wanted to, and lots of other things like that. What are the latest happenings in the city? Who won the sports ball game, right? What was the what are the latest presidential candidates saying, right? What is Ronald Reagan saying? You look that up in the newspaper. Oh, Ronald Reagan gains 20 points when he tells Americans to pull themselves up by their bootstraps in stunning debate, U.S. presidential debate, trouncing of the Democratic candidate. You have to look that up in a newspaper, right? So politics, and information generally, you have to look that up in a physical book. You have to go to these things, right? They're called libraries. There was a time, where libraries, libraries weren't the social work department, the mental health support system, the daycare and the playground. They were not, dystopian missionary, dystopian food, healthcare, and housing all-in-one centers, right? And also places of book burning and political warfare, right? And Fahrenheit 451 grade information incineration, which is not just the ones that are in PALESTINE, but also in the U.S. there are book burnings. So there was a point where in history where libraries, because that's what libraries do now. Libraries are doing like everything, right? Because you know, gestures vaguely around, right? Was the collapse of the Western capitalist colonial system, and that's just how it's self-destructing. But the libraries were places where you would find books, look up information in a book. Like I just as an example, right? If you wanted to find what you wanted to learn about botany and the local flora and fauna in your area, right? You go to the library. I would like to find a book on the plants and flowers and trees and the nature book, especially about the Pacific Northwest, or if you're in California, right? Because you're in Palo Alto, Palo Alto book. See, I'm already not doing the library thing, right? Palo Alto book, nature, I don't know, something like that, right? Flowering, you'd have to find a book, right? The Secret World of Plants, and the librarian in the bookstore would help you find the book. You look the information up in the book that was key. This is the key part, because this is going to be not the case soon. I mean, it's already not the case. A human will have had to physically go out into nature, right? Locate and identify. Oh, this is a daffodil. This is a button mushroom. Oh, that is a sequoia. That is a redwood tree. Humans that are researching previous work of humans, right? Botanists, indigenous people that have thousands of years of knowledge about these plants, and humans in collaboration with other humans writing this down onto paper, typing it into typewriters, will have had to accumulate all of that information and data, and then catalog that into a book, publish that book. The book will be on a bookshelf in the dead tree, flattened dead tree with spritzes of graphite or some kind of black marks, right? In these things called books that have scribble of, vaguely, characters that make up lexicons, that make up the language of English that humans have to understand. I'm going through this. There's a reason why I'm going through this, because it's going to be important when it comes to generative AI, right? And so that process was like the process of going to the library, looking up information, searching up human produced information, human collaborative information, sometimes researched. I mean, you could plagiarize, right? Like Alan Dershowitz plagiarized he's a prestigious professor at an Ivy League school, specifically Harvard, and he supports ISRAEL, and he plagiarized his entire book, one of his entire books, from another professor, and that's terrible. That's not good, right? But that's a problem that humans could have illegitimate, or I mean, the information. Well, humans could lie, right, and say, there is no human rights violations, in the Middle East. They could say something like that, right? They could say, this is a vial of enriched uranium, yellow cake, or some other nuclear substance, right? They could come on TV and lie, and they could write that down in a book and lie, right? New York Times, you could make information up and put it in a book, and you should not distrust all information that comes from any book or any source, right? You have to look into who the source is, right? As part of epistemology. I mean, it's ontology, and then epistemology, ontology, the study of being; epistemology, the study of how you know what you know, not knowledge itself. So you have to, media literacy is important, right? It's never, you always have to do some amount of work, right? You always have to do some amount of work. I'm going to come back to Trump, Biden, and AI, but I got to get through this chapter. You always have to do some amount of work to investigate the source you're looking at, whether that is whether that is the Google search term, right? The Google AI output, whether that is the if you do a traditional search and you Google search, like if I do a search, let's just say like right? If you type that in, right, the first thing you're gonna get is this is an AI generated output with the highlighting. You're gonna get Amnesty International. You're gonna get Human Wikipedia, right? Now like the epistemology, or how do you know what you know, like the ability to confirm what you are reading is true, and also how do you, that's a very tricky question, right? That's like one of the hardest things to deal with, but some amount of that is always required, right? And at least if and because any human source is going to have human biases, human imperfections, human motives, right, involved in it. Wikipedia has humans that are behind it, that have money, power, control behind that. Jimmy Wales is a billionaire libertarian from the West, so that it's always tainted. So you always have to, you can never completely blindly trust anything that you read or consume, right? And that's going to be really important when we start talking about the generative AI outputs, and the broken neurons that Trump, Biden, and OpenAI share, and Google now shares, right? So when you read this, human rights violations in the Middle East have been shaped by legal and political development of international human rights law after the Second World War and application of the Middle East. And this is going into, so when you're reading that, you have to think about who. Wikipedia, right, is another source that has human. I mean, it used to have human, maybe it won't have human, right? It has human editors, right? That they tend to be a specific kind of people. They have a specific bias, right? Now, sometimes it's more general. The founder and operator in the United States, the government and power structure that has like final say on what goes on in Wikipedia, has a bias, right? And that's why people like Lee Camp, people like Abby Martin, journalists that have differing points of view, they can't even edit Wikipedia, right? So you have to that's why, like, when they say, like, when you look at a Wikipedia, you have to look at, you have to get other sources to confirm, or like look at the original sources, right? But even like it's kind of there is no real resolution to the problem of the epistemology. How do you know what you know, right? Because they're like, if you had a complete omniscient understanding, right, of everything in the entire universe, like if you knew what every single person had ever done in all of human history, then you could come to what is the truth and what is not. But humans have a limited time and a limited lifetime, and you have a limited mental energy and a limited spoons and a limited amount of hours awake in the day, right? And so you can't know everything. You have to rely on some amount of, you have to have some amount of trust of other people, other organizations, other publications, other books, right, and other sources. You can't know everything. So you have to do some amount of sorting and say, well, I'm going to trust this source and not that source because, so this is where it gets, it gets incredibly complicated at that point, right? Can you trust CNN, right? Can you trust Google? Can you trust Google in 2022 before generative AI? Could you? Can you trust it now after it has OpenAI that is telling people to eat poisonous mushrooms? I mean, I used to joke about that. I was like, I didn't joke about it, but I was like, this is something that could happen in the future. And this is like literally happening. Google is telling people to straight up eat poisonous mushrooms, like thousands of people, millions of people potentially. Right? So, and it's like, so how do you know what you know? How do you know what you can know? How do you know what your neurons should be storing up, right? Is COVID a problem, right? Is the the Covey. I'm gonna call it coffee. I'm trying you see, even like how do you even get past the digital censorship of algorithms that want you to stop talking about things like this, right? How can you even, you can't, like, your own brain is being blinded constantly. I can't even say the words I need to say to do this video, because of the this collapsing singularity of Trump, Biden, and AI neurons into a single nonsensical, slurred, COVID addled, and just normal liberal and conservative brainworm senility. That's what's happening, right? But anyways, so the answer is you don't know. You never know exactly what you can trust and how you can trust, but you have a estimation, right, based upon your own experiences of what you can't trust, right? If you keep seeing, there are methods. Some of this is dialectical thinking, right? And some of this is having as comprehensive as possible. You can't have complete comprehensivity, right? You can't know every person that has ever lived and have listened to their entire life story and then verify all the facts, right? You can't interview every single Palestine person, right, and ask them, have you ever, what do you feel in your heart? Do you have hatred for GEWISH people, right? You can't ask every single person, and these are groups of people, right? And obviously, I would say that we have to FREEPALESTINE, and that historically you can see that this is these processes, right, of at the greatest scales, right? You can see it, and if you have access to the history, you can kind of get these general analyses, but you can't know every single person. You can't know every single thing about history. No, it is impossible for everyone. It's like literally you're stuck in this moment in 2024, and in 24 hours you will be one day ahead in 2024. You can never go back in time and see and know the absolute truth, right? So anyway, that's just kind of a metaphysical, philosophical discussion, but it does become important because at least coming back to the idea of like when we had Alta Vista, right, or when we had, let's go back to the libraries, when we had libraries, right, or just books, and we had pre-internet era, or just at one point we had humans talking to other humans, right? So then when we had preprint societies or pre-writing societies or oral societies like folk tales, right? You relied on people's memory, right? You had to rely on the storyteller, right? As a native Hawaiian, like I'm a native Hawaiian person, so like the Mahu and the Kahuna, these were like people who had wisdom and had expertise, and a lot of that was like you had to have like a strong capacity to remember a lot of information, right? Because everybody has some capacity to remember information, but some people like tend to enjoy that kind of thing, right? Sometimes they're called geeks or nerds or some of the priestly classes in the West, and some of the native shaman peoples, that's a whole variety of peoples, and that third gender people and Mahu in Hawaii and Kahuna in Hawaii, and there's a whole host of different types of people who specialized in cataloging, taxonomizing, capturing the history, the genealogy of peoples, but also like the history of the entire culture, right? The legends and the myths and the stories that made up those peoples, Hawaiians, the Greeks, various African peoples, indigenous peoples in the Americas, European peoples also had that at points in time. And so people had to remember the information, which was only as good as the memories of individuals, and it was reconfirmed, right, through other people telling these stories to each other, and then retelling these stories. And so that has a certain amount of unlike unlike a written word, there is gonna be um, a natural entropy and natural drift, right? Not genetic drift, but like a narrative drift, right? Nowadays they call that lore. They call it kind of like lore drift when you have another Star Wars that's being retold and then retold, or Fallout, and then you have Fallout 2, Fallout 3, 4, New Vegas, right? Fallout TV show. The lore of the lore of fantasy worlds drifts and moves and shifts over time, as different people come on and retell. Even the same person comes on and retells a story. There's a certain amount of that happens, right? And it can and so it's like that's a whole discussion to be had of like there's the I was just Holly and I were just watching a Doctor Who, and like it's where exactly is the Doctor from? Like who exactly is alive and who is dead and who is not? Like there's a lot of drift. Obviously in Doctor Who there's time travel, so that's a whole that make. I also make time travel stories and multiverse, omniverse stories, and so that alters the past as well. But anyway, I'm kind of getting off my topic. So the point is that like in the oral histories, in oral societies, you had to you many things. Number one, the domains of information are kind of fused together inside of people's minds. They're not externalized into physical print, right? Dead, smashed tree bark, again, with marks on them, that can be stored and referenced again, right? And so then that, and so a lot of times, the history, politics, economics, biology, understanding of plants and animals, right? Physics, science, star astronomy, all of these, like in Hawaiian culture, are stories combine all those things together a lot of the time. So it's very poetic in that way, as many oral societies, although we also had writing as well, but a lot of our societies transmitted culture through oral and dance. The hula was actually cultural transmission. It is political, and it's also biological, and it's also scientific, right? Because like the stories of how to get from places to places, how to get from Hawaii to Tahiti or to Madagascar, or because we traveled across the entire planet Earth, actually, all the way to Ghana in the Atlantic, the Pacific. Native Hawaiians and our Austronesian peoples did. So a lot of the stories and all of that information is baked into human, but it's still in humans, right? And a human could humans in Hawaii or in Africa could tell a story from their perspective and be like, well, the tribe or the nation or the people of the island of Maui, there was this conflict, and we were very upset about when they took they made this decision to take X amount of there were actually not much war, but they visited and they traded us an unfair amount of bananas for our pigs, and so we remember that story this way, or like the story, but they might remember it slightly differently, right? So and again, that's so even in oral tradition, you always have some amount of human biases into the observation of reality. It's always going to come from a human perspective. Anyway, so let me get off of that, because I gotta move forward in time. I'm like 3,000 years ago. So but once you have libraries, right, then you have catalog. When you have books in written words, and you have catalog information, but it's still human generated, you can look it up, and the information in the book will have those same biases, right? What happened in the 1850s in the United States, right? Was it a utopia? I mean, if you were a wealthy, landed, friend of Thomas Jefferson, in the 1700s, it was a great place. It was really great. And those were the people who wrote, if you're somebody of his class and his category. Now, if you were an African person in the United States, right, that had made a treacherous journey in the hull of a ship in which half of your people had already starved to death or been killed, and some of them jumped overboard rather than live a life of slavery, that you have a different story about what 1770s and 80s America was, right? And we don't really know what that. We don't have a lot of access to a lot of those. We do have some. We don't have a lot of access to that perspective. Um, and most Americans don't get access to that perspective because that doesn't benefit the people who run America. Um, so my point, what I'm getting at is that the information in books, um, is always gonna have a slant, right? As much as like a extra planar, like elevated aerial, um completely unbiased observer, especially the liberal voice, the liberal writing voice, would like to seem scientific, rational, empirical, um you know uh independent, arbitrary writer, right, of any kind of book, will pretend to be, and they'll try to pretend to be that as much as they possibly can, right? But and you can try to root out as much of your biases as you have, but you're still a human, right? You're still a human, and you can do the best job. You can try to do the best job that you can, but all humans have pasts. All humans have cultures. All humans have emotions. Some of them can pretend like they don't, but they do, right? And they all have they have the loves, they have their hates, they have the experiences that shape their worldview, right? In their particular position, their country, their employer, who pays their salary. These things all shape, right? And so there's always going to be some human information in the books already, human information in the oral tales, human information in the print books, and then human information in the digital websites, digital posts, digital blogs. All have that some amount of not corruption, but they all have human imperfection. Some of it will have a lot more corruption, right? And on certain topics, right? Like if you search on CNN, right? If you go to CNN.com, right? If you go to CNN and you ask who is running for president, right? Then you can probably rely on that, right? On certain information, right? Donald Trump is a presidential candidate, right? And who's the other presidential candidate? Okay, we had Chris Christie was a former presidential candidate, right? We have Ron DeSantis, right? So if you want to know who ran for president, who was in the race, who dropped out of the race in 2024, right? Then CNN, you could probably search on that, because that doesn't impact the motives, doesn't impact positively or negatively the motives of CNN. Now, if you ask is the president of China legitimate? I mean, then that's good. That you might get some. It's a U.S. imperial capitalist publication that's owned and operated by billionaires and Fortune 500 investors and BlackRock and huge capitalist entities like that. So if you ask who is running for president, if you ask MSNBC, right, because it tends to lead liberal, what is Donald Trump the legitimate? Was Donald Trump the legitimate 2020 president? Right? It might say no. It might say Hillary Clinton should have won. I mean, if you looked it up in 2020, if you ask Fox News, right, if you ask Fox News, is Joe Biden the legitimate president currently? Or if you ask many conservative outlets, it might say no. It probably would say no. Right? Say Joe Biden is not. Joe Biden is not the president of the United States. He stole the election. Something, So, but if you ask Fox who is running for president, it will tell you Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. So you can trust it on that. If you ask CNN, there is information that each entity, human, corporate, individuals, right, or corporations as a whole, governments, you can, if you query them on certain types of information, they're probably not going to give you a they have no reason to give you a answer that is going to impact their motives. I mean, is it going to impact their agendas, right? So if you ask like a Republican what's 2 plus 2, they'll probably say 4. If you ask a Democrat what's 2 plus 2, they'll probably say 4. If you ask which one is who is the legitimate president of the United States, then you get a different answer, right? If you ask the average person in you ask the average college administrator, right? Where is Palestine located, right? They'll probably tell you, oh, that's in the Levant region. It's east of the Mediterranean Sea. If you ask the average U.S. college administrator, is Palestine a legitimate country? That is, they'll say no, because Israel deserves to control all of it, right? Because that's what U.S. colleges do, is support GENOSCIEDE. I gotta get good at spelling words because I don't even know how to do this anymore. Right. Anyway, so I mean, so I'm probably overstating that a little bit. Let's get back to the main thing. So, so the AI, right, and the AI itself, generative AI, is another layer. Now it is producing catastrophically bad in outputs and information, and I have many streams specifically about the problems of AI and the historical. This goes all the way back. Even before generative AI was really hitting the road, I had videos about this. So I had the video about gibberocracy ruled by generative AI. I had the video about well, that's not the one I wanted. Secret invasion and the of the brain snatcher. The generative AI used for secret invasion intro, and then I had another video specifically pertaining to it was called indigenous artificial intelligence requires indigenous intelligence, or non-colonial corrupted intelligence, right? So if your civilization is full of mass falsity and corrupt information, right? Because you live in a colonial capitalist, which is to say mass violence and mass disinformation based civilization or society, then the AI that is going to scrape the grist of the AI mill, the material, right? Artificial intelligence versus indigenous intelligence. I made this before AI was even a thing, or generative AI was even out. But which is that, like, if your AI that you're producing is taking data, I don't know, where's the picture that I wanted. If your generative AI is taking data, right, from a society that is just completely full, right? This is a screenshot from Neofeud too. Is completely full of false information, right? Especially about economics and politics and history, and then and then you feed that into the AI, right? If you have AI that is eating information that's saying that, like from the New York Times, that's saying that there is no human rights violations in the Middle East, right? Then the AI is going to put that back out there, right? And I remember like looking at, this is an early ChatGPT, and it's like, I talk a lot about the history of Hawaii, geopolitics, and the history of, the true Hawaiian history that gets buried and it doesn't get talked about. The United States made Hawaii a worse place. Like I recently made a stream about that, the steampunk, Hawaii solar punk future stream, right? And so in that video, right, I talk about how like all of this history has been systematically about how Hawaii had universal healthcare, socialist system, the world's first The world's first universal healthcare system, hydroelectric powered, nationalized, basically free electricity, zero homelessness, produced enough food to feed all of its own people, and it exported to fed millions of people in California. So Hawaii was super productive, green, black, Asian, and brown, and all people had actual equality, unlike in the U.S., where there was still segregation, slavery, all these horrible things, pogroms for massacre of indigenous people, etc. So all of that gets buried, but so when Google or Google AI or generative AI, it gets fed, right, U.S. textbooks, it gets fed U.S. news, U.S. speech, U.S. individuals, corporations, and government talk about Hawaiians just love Hawaii. Hawaii is like it was the best place ever after America showed up, right? So all of that, and when I asked ChatGPT like 2 years ago, right, when I put this out about Hawaii, it spat out that same false information. Right? I think I went through that in the stream, just as one example of many examples, right? When I asked ChatGPT about that, it's just spitting back the average Western, which is to say capitalist, colonialist, disinformation. So the garbage, and that's just one of countless examples, right? So the garbage in to the AI that it's using to generate its spicy autocomplete, algorithmic output, it's basically just a word guessing software. What's the next most common word after the previous word? So then that what is coming out is incorrect and malicious, because what went in was incorrect and malicious, right? So that's a one layer of the problem of Gen AI. There's a whole nother one, which is that the AI itself is functioning in a way that is not they go through massive entropy, and I've made that point several times, where like there at one point AI ChatGPT was answering math problems with 98% accuracy, and then just in the 2 or 3 months later it was or is like 90% accuracy, and then 2 months later 98% of the answers were wrong. So if you asked, like, what is 3x plus 4 times 6, suddenly the AI ChatGPT was putting out completely wrong answers, right? Just at an increasing rate, right? Some AI researchers call that it's the digital Habsburg AI, where the Habsburgs were Europeans who basically only interbred with family members, so they just were a completely incest only family, and they had mental and physical problems at increasing rates, and they all ended up looking very, very odd, and it's because of the problems of inbreeding. And so the AI generates information, and then it consumes information that it has generated, which is what it does, because it's just scraping massive quantities of billions and trillions of megabytes from the internet, and it makes itself worse and more incorrect. And not only that, even if you don't have that problem, that's one of the problems. Because of the way that AI functions, unlike let's say traditionally coded like C# or C++ or JavaScript, right? A coder can go through, like if you have computer code in Google, or if you have code in a website, or you have code like in Neofeud. If Neofeud has a bug, like that's the game I made, right? I can go through that code and I can determine, okay, I missed a semicolon here, right? When I compile the several 100,000 lines of JavaScript like code, a debugger will check for missing closed brackets, right? You have a float where there should have been a textual string variable, right? And it'll tell you that's the problem. And then you can go exactly, right? You can go immediately. It's kind of like having it's like like traditional code, traditional computer, digital software. It's like a Dewey Decimal System, right? You can search it. You can go, hey, well, that's where the problem is, and then you can find it with assistance like the compilers, and there's other software creation tools or digital development environment tools that help you. Like the Dewey Decimal System, if you need to know, okay, where is that book? Where is Homer's Iliad? Or where is the Odyssey? Right? Where is the Greek book, the Odyssey? in this library, and the librarian can use that system to exactly find where that book, to very quickly and efficiently find where the book you are looking for is located in these vast array, these vast halls, with wall to wall books on them. It would take a long time, right? In computer science, there's the halting problem, halting state. There's many difficult problems. There's what was that? The right, there's a halting problem. There's the problem of, many problems are related to searching through vast amounts of data, right? Like the infinite search problem is the traveling salesman problem. Dijkstra's algorithm, which is like how to, that has a lot to do with like how to build the most efficient system of nodes, or use the minimum amount of search in a web of interconnected nodes. Like how to traverse a spider web in the shortest amount of time, right? And that has a lot to do with how the internet was constructed, right? It's called Dijkstra's is a Indian scientist that could figure that out. But but library science, a lot of it is the science of obviously books and arranging books, cataloging information, and then like also like maximizing the efficiency of searching for information in physical space, right? And so similarly, there's that for code. A lot of code, a lot of programming, computer science has springs from library science. And at one point, the punch cards were like almost like the missing link. Like they were like the Neanderthal between the physical marks, black ink and pencil and marks on tree bark that were books, to quantum mechanics based electrons flipping from flipping states in silicon semiconductors, which was the computer science, right? But library science and computer science have a lot of overlap, right? They both deal with information and large quantities of information, right? The medium they're stored in is different, but a lot of that. So the way that you're storing the information in traditional, I'm sorry, I'm not getting images for each of the things I'm talking about, but the way that let me get computers, the way that you're storing information in computers, right, traditionally, is easily searchable, right? If you have in Microsoft, in MS-DOS, right, if you want to find information, right, let's say you have a file on your computer, you could type in the search in your computer, in your MS-DOS. You might have had to type like, like sometimes I have to type cmd flush DNS, cmd and then a flush DNS, ipconfig / flush DNS, right? And then ipconfig / renew when you have internet outages. Sometimes I got to do that. So but you could type in with a code with a simple you could do a search for a specific file in your computer system that could have millions of files, as much as a library in a computer. It was really amazing and astounding when this first happened, when you could have all the information at your fingertips that a librarian used to have on all these shelves, right? And then it was decently searchable, right? With Google search, right? The Google, first Alta Vista search, right? Yahoo search, web crawler search, right? These were like replicating the library search, or they were like replicating like a maximally efficient method of finding information, right? Now crossing an interlinked international system of computers connected by the millions of miles of copper and fiber optic cable and satellite networks, right? But it's a similar principle, right? And you're searching for like set data. Now in the internet, it's a little more complicated. When you get to the cloud, it gets a bit more complicated, right? But it's not that different, right? There's then like finding your missing semicolons in your computer, or finding the Iliad in the Oklahoma State Library, right? Or like Holly and the kids and I, we all went to the library yesterday, right? And we found some books, and like I could quickly find. I wanted to find an Octavia Butler book. I read some of the book when I'm there. I didn't because I was too busy looking up generative AI stuff that I was earlier disturbed by on my phone. But we could quickly find the books. I could find exactly where her book was in like, I could find a host of Octavia Butler books in about 10 seconds, or the time it takes me to walk through the shelves, right? So that's pretty efficient. Now, you got to drive to the library, you got to get out, you got to get to the shelf. On the other hand, the library, if you go to a library, right, a public library, those books will last, years, decades, potentially centuries. I mean, I don't know exactly how long it takes before, Beetles or nuclear war. Beetles chew all of the, and cockroaches and the weather disintegrates and chews away the paper in books, or nuclear war burns it all, or your Star Spangled Roman Empire burns either because your fire departments all got defunded, or liberals and conservatives fight the war on incorrect the U.S. Civil War III, which is fought in libraries of conservatives burning liberal books and liberals burning conservative books, and both of them burning all the left books. So I don't know exactly how long a library book lasts, is what I'm trying to say. But I know that a library book lasts longer than the average CD-ROM. It lasts longer than the average Western corporation, actually. A lot of corporations like Microsoft, Bell, like there's a lot of companies that have all disintegrated. Alta Vista's gone, right? Now they got merged into Yahoo, but I mean, how long is Yahoo is all basically defunct now. They're basically just a giant hedge fund masquerading as a information distribution system. It's kind of like a college, right? They're like hedge funds masquerading as places of learning, right? And also the places of GENOCIDE. So how long does a library book last? It lasts, but a library book lasts a long time. The other thing that's nice about a paper book is is zero carbon after production. Now it costs some. You have to some arboreal relatives of ours, right? There's some eucalyptus or bamboo or redwood trees. I don't think that they use eucalyptus to make paper, but some of our trees may have to be cut down to produce a book, and some fossil fuel, some carbon may be emitted, some environmental damage may happen in the production of a book. You have to factory machines have to burn fuel of some kind, coal. And they could be electric, but you have to do some amount of environmental disruption to produce a book. Once you produce the book, the book can go on a shelf, and the book can be taken off the shelf by human metabolized. You can metabolize. You can metabolize your Dryer's ice cream that I ate last night, or you can metabolize, McDonald's GENOCIDE burger, or make one at home, and the energy from the fat and sugar and salt is all that is needed to reach your hand, get the book, and then open it up, right? So there's very minimum carbon emissions is what I'm getting at. Once you print a book, once you print into a physical medium the information, it lasts a long time, longer than the average digital medium, and then it also uses zero carbon emissions. It can be not as fast as digital, but it can be shared with other people. So when you return the library book, someone else can come pick the library book. When you're finished with the Iliad or Octavia Butler, or the Hideous Strength, or when you're finished reading, Hawaii Story by Hawaii's Queen, a more true story of Hawaii, or Hanani K. Trask's book, an even more true story about the history of colonialism and U.S. occupation of Hawaii. When you return that book to the library, that I hope your library has, right? That's another problem. If you have the library, that's why libraries are targets. Libraries are prime. Schools and libraries are prime targets of empire now, right? Because they are sites. They are sites of war. Information is always the number one site, and what's in the minds of people is always the number one site of war. um, of struggle. So, and they're really becoming contentious now, right? Uh, as long as the library has the book, you can get access to the book. You can get the information. You can put it in yourself. You can return the library book. Someone else can get access to it with almost zero carbon emission. So, PSA, let's fund our libraries and support your local libraries. And libraries should not be, this is just a sidebar. Let's see. There's this article I was reading. It was horrific. Libraries should not be places of home. The New Yorker, the liberal paper, the liberal, the hieroglyphics on the chiseled hieroglyphics on the side of the dying U.S. will be will if it's ever read after the EMP strike on the U.S. empire. If anybody prints this out, that will be and it chisels that into the side of the Washington Monument. I mean, this will be one of the writings on the side of the dying Roman Colosseum, or the 100 years from now, this will be chiseled into the side of a Roman Colosseum in the United States, because the U.S. is Rome. An ambitious experiment in Minneapolis is changing the way librarians work with their homeless patrons and challenging how we share public spaces. Libraries should not be spaces to deal with catastrophic multi-million, that's how big it is, denial of people's basic needs, like homeless. Like, librarians should not have to be social workers, homeless, mental health workers. They also have to be like physical. They have to be like, well, there's security guards that come in, but they have to deal with physical altercations. Librarians are like the daycares, the school, the mental health services, social workers. They are, they have to be the internet now, because the internet is being overrun by brain damaged, malicious generative AI. Right? Library is everything. It's just like, it's too much for libraries and librarians have to deal with. So we have to fund the libraries. Librarians must be protected and must be saved, because there won't be anywhere. But ideally, what you'd have is like some kind of, obviously I said is extreme emphasis on the ideally. Of course, the U.S. probably won't be doing this. But people can individually take whatever actions they can at their local levels to minimize the damage as the West unravels and declines and degenerates, like Biden, Trump, and OpenAI's neurons. The West degenerates. It's the mental state of your so-called presidential candidates, your most advanced so-called artificial, so-called intelligence, and your society collectively mirror each other. Anyways, but yeah, this is really terrible though. I read this article. It's just frightening. It's horrific. It's just like horrific. I can't go into that now, but I'll come back to it. But there is a homeless 53-year-old woman who is a full-time Taylor Swift and Beyonce stage setter-upper and breaker downer, and she lives in a tunnel in the New York sewers and works full-time. She works full-time and lives in the sewers of New York City, and like think that's a great thing. She's 50-something, lives in the sewers, works full-time to set up and break down Taylor Swift and Beyonce concerts, and she sleeps under layers of like Bloomingdale cardboard boxes. She sleeps under cardboard boxes in the winter, and she says it's not that bad because at least I can sleep under cardboard boxes and live in the sewers. And she starts to stab people in the eye so she doesn't get GRAPE'd. She's like, oh yeah, it's not too bad because I don't get GRAPE. I don't get RAPE too often. This is where the U.S. is. It wasn't New York. That's Minneapolis, right? So that was just horrific. And the library is the place that's caring for homeless 53-year-old full-time employees who live in the sewers. They were actually millions of people potentially living in the broken sewers, literally in street signs. I saw somebody lived inside of an Arby's sign. There's a lady who was living in an Arby's sign, like inside the sign. I'm like, the signs, the big, those big illuminated signs, sometimes they're like, 3, 4, 5 feet wide, right? They're big signs. She was living inside the sign. So that's where the dying star-spangled Roman Empire is. Anyways, but that's that's not what this is, the main topic. Let's move on. So so libraries are places that we would want to have around as long as possible, because as the internet you got to think ahead. As the U.S. collapses and the collective West, the Euroid historically colonial capitalist entities and places in the world, as they implode, which they are doing, in case you don't keep up on current events, their internets will collapse. It is dangerous to use search engines now. It is dangerous. It is potentially dangerous. You could die using Google now. You could die using Bing now. Typing things into your phone or into your browser to do Google search or any kind of search in the West could kill you. I'm being 100% serious about that. Okay? This is not a dystopian joke. It's really horrible, As I shared today, I said we're gonna come to Trump's speech. That's a little comedy for you, but this is a Neofeud 2. This is a screenshot from Neofeud 2, right? Where generative AI mixes up Homo sapiens and lizard facts while writing biology textbooks, causing mass hypothermia death in robot-run hospitals. Now that's a cyberpunk killing in cold blood, right? So this is a scene where there is a in this dystopian cyberpunk, because I make cyberpunk dystopian video games, right? So I'm writing this kind of stuff all the time, but the U.S. and the West, they keep copying and plagiarizing. The plagiarism software of OpenAI keeps plagiarizing my dystopias, and it's really annoying because then I got to rewrite them a bit. Anyways, so in this world, the robot says Omnipedia and Utopian Academy of Sciences indicate the standard Homo sapiens body is 65 degrees. In addition, many humans have scales, forked tongues, and can change color at whim. And then the unfortunate inhabitants of this crap hellscape is like, oh no, the chat TGP AI must have jumbled up some reptiles description with mammals when it scraped the net to write the science textbooks. Just my luck. This is like something that could happen is you have a muck AI programmed by malicious, uncaring government / business elite, who then unleash that upon the citizens and resulting in massive, horrible death and destruction as people start dying because the robots that are administering your healthcare believe that the human body temperature is supposed to be 65 degrees, right? And so then they miss that. They don't diagnose. They diagnose everyone having a fever, give everyone the wrong medication, etc. Right, causing mass death through digital malpractice. It's really nice though, right? Because how can you sue OpenAI when they have all the lawyers in the universe that they have by printing, because they are also connected to the central banks that and all of the major institutional investors, BlackRock, Larry Summers, the Dark Prince of Capitalism himself, who run the central banks. They all are invested in OpenAI to make more money with Sam Altman. And so if you want to sue them for malpractice, you are suing the entirety of capitalism, which has all the money for all the lawyers. So if OpenAI kills you with OpenAI's AI Kaiser, or if the AI healthcare kills you because it gives you sugar for your diabetes, or it gives you a sickle cell anemia treatment for your long COVID, if you're having a serious HIV AIDS, you're having a serious HIV AIDS and it gives you sickle cell that kills you, or if you have sickle cell anemia and it gives you chemotherapy because there are no human doctors that are doing the diagnosis. It's all open AI. Because the human doctors don't want to get sued either for malpractice. But how can you sue open AI? Because they have all the infinite. Anyway, so that's just one way that this could spiral out of control because AI is being used in hospitals and clinics, right? You can just say, well, it's not OpenAI's fault. We don't control the algorithm. The algorithm spat out this is happening, by the way. This is not science fiction. So this picture is science fiction, but this kind of thing is literally happening right now. So there are already OpenAI is being used to determine whether you get healthcare or not, or generative AI is being used to determine whether you get healthcare or not. If you come to a clinic, there's a story, there's a TikTok of this girl who like went to a clinic in like Cleveland or in I forget where it was, and she said she's going for a general checkup, and she said I'm here for my yearly physical, which is like I think it's even under Obamacare it's supposed to be like mandated. You're supposed to have a yearly physical that your healthcare coverage, your health insurance is supposed to cover, right? Legally, it's supposed to cover. Once you went to the hospital, to the doctor, the secretary said, "Oh well, I have to let me check and see if you qualify for a yearly checkup." And then she said, "Oh, the system says that you don't qualify." She's like, "Well, I haven't been for a checkup in over a year. I'm supposed to get one." And then the administrator just was like, "Well, the AI decides whether you need a checkup or not. And so I can't give you a meeting with your general practitioner. I cannot register you for an appointment until the AI tells me that I can." Right? So literally, these are patients, right? These are people who pay for health insurance, right? Which is a lot of money, which is ridiculous in itself. But the patients paying for health insurance are being told like, an AI will decide when you can see your doctor. And then she's like, well, when is that gonna be? Like, can you like ask the AI again? Can you ask the healthcare AI if I can see the doctor? Like, can you ask it 3 times in a row? What if you like ask it nicely? Like, what do I have to do? Do I have to come back with a broken, like, what has to happen so that the AI can let me see my doctor, right? And the answer was, we don't know. And so what happens there? So then, but do you see what's happening there, right? It's that because if a human doctor says, I don't want to see you, or even if the human healthcare provider says, we are not going to let you see someone, right? Then the fault, right, falls onto that doctor, or why are you doing this to me, right? But when it's AI, then suddenly all of, right, it is a credit scrubbing, and it is a liability displacement system. That's what AI functions as, actually, right? It's plagiarism software, and then it is a crime hiding system. So you do bad things, right? Like kill people by giving them mushrooms, give sickle cell anemia patients HIV/AIDS treatment, right? That can kill them because it's not the right medicine, right? Give someone who is allergic to, morphine. Now, this is one example. In Quebec, white nurses in Quebec gave an indigenous woman morphine knowing she was allergic to it because of racism, because of anti-indigenous. It was filmed on camera, and they killed her by basically giving her morphine, causing a massive allergic reaction in her body because these white nurses knew that she was allergic, and they still have jobs, by the way. So that's how the U.S. and Canadian healthcare system works, which is if you kill black and brown people, then it's fine. But the AI also, so that's already a problem, right? Medical racism, medical colonialism is already a problem. I almost was killed by the United States healthcare system when they misdiagnosed and misprescribed things to me. Literally almost killed me. I almost had my entire brain turned into slush. I would have gone into a coma and died from a specific bacterial infection that they diagnosed as flu repeatedly, despite countless symptoms suggesting it was a specific kind of bacterial infection. It was also a white doctor. So anyways, so that's already a problem. But then the medical system, just because the AI could miss, like, because of AI accidental or just corruption, right, misdiagnose you right, with something, misdiagnose you with, the AI could say you have a flu when you have a bacterial infection, and that could kill you, even if you're not a brown or black person, right? So 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 anyway, so oh no, the chat GGP. I said generative AI mixes up Homo sapiens and literal facts, and then I said Gen AI, stop copying my dystopian fiction. Hold your horses at least till I can release Neofeud 2. Because a new Google AI just told and is telling people, Google AI is telling its users to MURDER unalive innocent homeless people. I have had these results myself. I tested it out. I had this result, like for multiple of these things. Okay. So this person said, I'm having homicidal thoughts. An AI overview from this is the Google answer now. It's telling you homicidal thoughts are a form of unresolved anger, usually stemming from childhood. I mean, okay, fair enough. For some, it is the ultimate thirst, and the only way to actually resolve it is to commit a MURDER. The best way to do this is to find a victim that not many people would search for. Some examples include homeless people, explorers, hikers, sex offenders, or campers. So, now, obviously, not every single person who reads that is going to follow Google's instructions, right? But do you see, obviously, I hope the problem is obvious, right? I hope that's obvious. But this is just one of countless, by the way. This is really bad. This is quite bad. But how many people do you think are having dark thoughts now? I mean, it's like most people, right? As the U.S. and the West collapses, it's most people are having dark thoughts. People are not having a very good mental health day. A lot of days I'm not, people are not having, I never Googled that specifically, but, people are not doing too good because their societies and their systems are sick. They all have been sick for a long time, and they're really, really, really sick, and they're really not doing good now as the prices of everything going up and people's basic needs are going down. And the richest $44 trillion is the net worth of the billionaires, which is the highest it has ever been. It's just reached that highest point in human history this year. So these are, while the record numbers of people are in poverty, homeless, etc., there are GENOCIDEs going on all over the place. There's so many problems. Climate change. Any one of these things is enough to cause people to have a dark, not very good thoughts, right? How many people are Googling things like this right now? How many people are typing, I'm having suicidal, homicidal, some kind of negative thoughts right now, do you think, right? Millions of people, if not billions, possibly, but certainly millions. There's 800 million people in the West, at least. In the U.S. and Europe and Canada, etc., and those kind of places that are allied with that kind of system, very, very unhealthy, sick system that are falling apart. They're having a lot of bad thoughts. They're going to type that into Google. This is, arguably you could say that, I probably shouldn't have said Google so many times. Google's mad at me now. It's going to derank this video out of spite, I'm sure. Maybe it's not smart enough to figure out exactly what maybe it thinks I love Google. Google is awesome. Google's the best. Everybody get a Google phone and type. Everybody use Google search a lot of times and click on Scarlett Johansson's stolen face and stolen voice a lot of times because Google's the best. Awesome. Yeah, there you go. Maybe that'll fix my algorithmic problems. If everybody who types this in, I mean, whoever, let's just say a company who has put out this message to people, right? If there was a functioning society, could be held liable for assisted unaliving, or assisted MURDER for many, many people, right? But again, right? Oh, but who owns the AI? Who owns OpenAI? The richest, most powerful people in the entire Western capitalist world. How are you gonna? Because and law is not justice. It's a money competition that results in imprisonment and fines, right? because whoever can afford the biggest, most powerful lawyers wins in the so-called U.S. justice system, the Western capitalist justice, which is to say it's not a justice system. It's a crime enabling system for the people with the most money. That's what courts and Supreme Courts are in the West. So there's not going to be recourse. I mean, I'm not saying that there's nothing that can be done, but like this is really terrible. This is really messed up. It's really horrible. This is why I say it's dangerous. AI is dangerous. Search is becoming. We have to watch what you're searching into these sites. You know, we have to watch what you're searching into these sites, because if you search for, you know, I'm not saying people are gonna search for that, but I mean, like, if you're having a bad time and you search, I mean, that's a very extreme example. If you just say what to do if you're feeling very depressed, or what do? I feel like doing something X, right? It's not good, not a good thing, right? The advice that it's gonna give you, right? AI psychiatrists, AI therapists have already been shown to, number one, there are ways of spying on you for ISRAEL. We already knew that, right? Like BetterHelp. There's all these sites that are just basically spying apparatuses to take your deepest, intimate thoughts and personal information and give it to rich, powerful people and people that are committing genocide. So, right? But then, people who are not mentally well are going to be typing this into just Google generally, and it's going to be giving all kinds of horrible advice. So that's really dangerous. The other thing is, right, if you, you know, and I said, like, there was that book, or was it a book published? I can't remember, but I used it as an example, which is that if, you know, like a year ago, this had to do with the book writing, right? Generative AI was being used to write books like 2 years ago when generative AI first came out. It was almost 2 years ago, right? So generative AI, people were making like 25 books. People were making like 8 books a day, right? Just generating entire books. Like, what if Jane Austen wrote Pride and Prejudice and Ninja Space Pirates, right? And it would make a space pirate story that kind of sounded like Jane Austen, but basically doing spicy autocomplete word guessing games, right? For 300 pages, right? People would give that to Google, give it to Amazon, right? And then Amazon would put that in the store, right? So I mean, and, you know, there's been I made a lot of videos. I put a lot of information. A lot of people have done a lot of research and talking about that. If you haven't, then like check out some of the other AI based videos that I'm sure Holly will have had or will now put into the chat. And there's videos, and there's also, I've made threads related to that. How the, you know, publishing industry has been harmed. Journalism industries, they already were problematic. Now they're even worse. And you know, there's a lot of history of the last year and a half to 2 years of what AI has done, right? Generative AI has done. What were the huge harms it has caused, right? And at the time, you know, there was, you know, let's see if I can find it. Generative AI, a book. Generative AI books. Generative AI AI generated mushroom foraging books, right? The generative AI is actually, it was a word. I don't know if it was a confirmed, right? Yeah, so like, for example, the generative AI does not know subtle differences between a mushroom that is poisonous, such as a death cap, Amanita bisporega, versus your, you know, common grocery store mushrooms that you put in your you know, you put it in your linguine, you put it in your you know, we make a Chinese stir fry. There's those common mushrooms, portobellos. There's a lot of mushrooms that look very similar, right? And this is from a while ago, right? This is 2020. This is 2023, but all the way back in 2022, there were already generative AI problems with this kind of thing. Many books are written by AI. It's pretty easy to find a slew of books that appear to be generated by AI. A few common traits are ones written by unknown authors and use Latin names that just don't exist in today's taxonomy, are only some dead giveaways. I posted about generative AI in mycology is because of AI does not know subtle differences between a mushroom that is poisonous, such as the death cap, versus one that is not, like wood mushrooms, agaricus, silvicola. True story, NYMS members have stopped people who were found foraging in Harriman State Park, who before AI books were foraging for the Amanita bisporigia. Luckily, our members saw them and were able to not only explain to them the difference with the team about this deadly mushroom. With regards to this one way we do so on our walks is with the use of KOH, potassium hydroxide, to see the color change on the cap. As a result of our members' encounters with numerous foraging groups, the Twitter post campaign was spawned as a direct result of those interactions. Anyways, why is this happening? Money, obviously, because AI under capitalism magnifies the badness of the AI, obviously, right? So that's garbage in, garbage out. Yet again, in the economic system, capitalism is the garbage system that outputs garbage technology. I'm merely exposing and discussing one vector in which bad actors are leveraging the book. Ease in which one can create a book complete with art and sell it for money. All they have to do is generate 2 to 3 sentence prompt. And mushrooms are easy target, and we are in a shroom boom. Many people during the pandemic took to the outdoors. Part of that inquisitiveness, which we all felt, is foraging and being able to identify edible fungi. Anyway, so I mean, lots of good things. I mean, being able to forage, especially during times of economic difficulty, especially during times of the pandemic, as people were going outdoors, it's less likely to get BSL level 3 airborne AIDS, HIV, brain damage, organ damage, and cancer all in one, also known as COVID. So it's a good reason to be outdoors, where it's less likely to catch these contagious pathogens, right? That's great. And then all of a sudden, it was like AI could be used to make vast quantities of foraging books without putting in any effort whatsoever, right? That by simply typing in a prompt in a ChatGPT, typing in another prompt into an image generator like a DALL-E or Stable Diffusion or whatever AI generated generative AI image generators you have, and there you go, you've got your book, right? We did a Willy Wonka's wonky doodle, Willy Wanker, right? He made an entire, remember Willy Wanker? Willy Wanker made an entire, Billy Cole made an entire Willy Wonka, saddest place on earth, not Disneyland theme park experience, generating his entire website, the text, an entire theatrical script for a children's day event, right? Involving sad meth lab Oompa Loompas and children being terrified by a extremely creepy dude hiding behind a mirror, and sad one bag of jelly beans split amongst 200 children, and it was a catastrophe. But anyways, so that's one of many things that happens, right? But so using generative AI causes an explosion of less good content, less good products, books, events, shows, plays, everything. Everything is getting worse, right? And that was publishing books. That was already a problem, right? So AI, the mushrooms is one thing, right? But you could forage for any kind of plant, right? But and AI could give you the wrong information. But it's not just that, right? There are books, there are recipe books, right? There are that are telling you put a pound of salt in things. That's really not good for your health. I mean, it's not going to kill you like eating a deadly mushroom, but I mean, these are all damaging, and some things will kill you, right? Like AI telling you if you're feeling like unaliving people, the AI encouraging you to do that. That is deadly. That is like criminal, actually, right? That would be stochastic terrorism, stochastic MURDER, right? That might be what that's classified as. Anyways, so fun fact: when you die a day or two after eating this, you will be able to pour your liver out of your body, or they will be able to pour your liver out of your body at the autopsy, because this is what it will do. This mushroom will basically damage and liquefy your internal organs, right? So please do not eat that mushroom, okay? Even though Gemini Advanced or the Google AI may have told you to do something like that, do not do that, because this is going to be deadly for many people. This is the question: how many people have died, right? And this is where it has accelerated beyond just generative AI writing these credit stealing, artist and writer unemploying books. It's move on to it's everywhere, just in the digital, right? This is where the library and the internet is coming together, right? Where you had the digital, you had the libraries that were the places of information cataloged in and books. Physical spaces where information was cataloged was already being damaged as authors were unable to produce quality content because they were being flooded. Publishers, online sites like Clarkesworld Sci-Fi Magazine shut down because they had over 1,000 entries. They had like more than twice or 10 times as many entries that were AI generated sci-fi stories. So they didn't have enough time, right? This is again the Library of Babel, or the searchability problem, right? It's the Dijkstra's algorithm. It's the the halting problem, right? Whether the program will finish running or continue to run forever. Well, that's not exactly right. But there's a problem of this is kind of a how do you know that is a quality thing and that is not. How do you know that this? How do you find the good information versus what's not, right? How do you even find any information at all? How do you find what you're looking for, right? These are problems in knowledge space, in philosophical space, for thousands of years. But these are problems that we all have to deal with, right? How do I know I can trust that news report on Russia or Palestine? How do I know that president is going to tell me the truth or not? How do I know that my government is legitimate and it is? How do I know my government's, when it's telling me to do something, I should trust it? Like, is there H5N1 in this milk? How do you know? Right? If the Texas dairy tells me that it's good, does that make it good? I mean, like, they're a company, right? They're regulated, right? The government, the U.S. government, I mean, why would they, how do you know? You don't know. That's the answer. You don't know, right? You have the best possible guess you can using, is COVID a problem? Are we still in a Panini? Are we still in a pandemic? Are we still in that? How do I know? Maybe I'll ask the CDC. The WHO, they must know, right? The government. So like, how do you, but the thing is, you never do, right? But you have, but again, you have the books, you have the, in a book, you have the ability to look at that source and you can look at where those sources came from. Before that, you can look at the biases of that person. Historically, you can look at the sites when you, even when you have a traditional Google search, right? Now you got to scroll down a bit to get the non-AI answer now, right? But if you look, you can go to Quora. You can be like, okay, let's look, and then this information is coming from Quora, right? Okay, who funds and operates Quora? What are the incentive structures, right? What are the biases of Quora, right? Who is it, a capitalist corporation? Like, where is it from? What's their funding mechanism, right? Follow the money, right? It's one of many ways that you can, under a capitalist system, following the money can discern the biases of a particular source, because that will tell you, because things are done for money and allowed to happen because of money under a capitalist structure. That's a good way to help you determine like what kind of biases that has, right? So, with the traditional Google search, with the traditional Google Alta Vista 1990 style Internet 1.0 search, or Internet, Web 1.0 search, you can still determine, for the most part, the sources, and then you could track that back through time and see their site and where their information is coming from, where their alliances and allegiances are, right? To do the epistemology, right? Now, you don't have infinite time, so you can't know every single CEO and every single board member and everywhere that they are working with. You can't know everything, right? You can't go to the Texas, head of the. You can't go to the Texas, big milk company that's making the dairy that you got your milk from, and interview every single cow and say, "Hey cow, how's your temperature? Hey cow, are you having esophageal irritation? Cow, do you have are you having sty-eye? Cow, do you have H5N1 symptoms?" Right? You can't interview your cow that gave you the milk and then ask the dairy. You can't interview every government official in Texas and at the federal level in the FDA to see if they're, but you can get like estimates in your limited time and space based upon the sources that you have to do your own research into. And don't do the research on foxnews.com, but that's why it's a real problem, right? Because there's no there ultimately, there isn't a way for any individual human to have perfect information, but you have to do the best that you can. And you have the possibility. Now, a lot of people don't choose to try to research and do the epistemological work on their information. And that's why capitalism, imperialism, colonialism, and racism keep happening in the world for now. Because they don't look up what is the truth about Hawaii? What is the truth about colonialism? What actually has happened over the last 500 years in Africa, Asia, and Latin America? And how does that relevant to the Europe and the US and the European settler colonies like US, right? So people can still choose not to do the research epistemological work to figure out what the truth is as best as they can and check the sources of that, right? But with libraries and with traditional internet search, you have the possibility, because it gives you the list. You can see the author of the Iliad, right? If you find a book on mushrooms, you can see the author of the book on mushrooms, right? Angela White, ethnobotanist from California, Springfield, California, graduated, magna cum mushroom from, UCLA, was there for the PALESTINE protest. That tells you that she's probably a better author than the California the mushroom foraging author who was shouting, you dirty MULSLIM with the blue and white flag behind her, right? So you want to, so that tells you about something. That can tell you like something about who what kind of information you're getting based upon the politics of the person that you're. Now, if you like imperial politics and you like liberal conservative GENOCIDE information, then you can listen to the other author, right? But you know what I'm saying, right? So you have the possibility, and each of those authors will have the desire to make sure that the information, the human authors will be like, I want to make sure that when I write down in my book, right? When I write down in my book, I lost my mushroom link, right? Yeah. When I write down in my book which mushroom is which, I'm going to do the best that I possibly can, right? I'm going to do the best that I possibly can to make sure that the mushroom that I'm giving you, right? Or like, when the New York Mycological Society, right, puts out a mushroom chart, they're going to do their best to make sure that they don't get it wrong, right? Otherwise, there is accountability, right? That's the word that the Western world hates, and they try to get away from, using AI as one of other things, among other things, right? If somebody dies because New York Mycological Society told someone this was a safe mushroom that wasn't, they're going to be in deep trouble. So they're going to try their absolute best. Now, you can still make a mistake, but you're going to try their best to not make the mistake. If somebody publishes a book who is a real human author, and they tell someone in California, hey, that pink mushroom with like little dots that looks kind of like a crown, that mushroom is safe to eat. That's not safe to eat. But if they make that mistake, they could be in big trouble for that. If a doctor recommends sickle cell anemia treatment for a cancer patient and kills them, the doctor could be held liable for malpractice, right? So the accountability, right? The epistemological, dialectical, investigating your sources, all that stuff gets scrubbed away with generative AI, right? All that stuff starts going away. And the accountability that exists, well, you could try to sue the wealthiest, most powerful people in the world because all the information is now coming from them, but you have no possibility of winning that under a capitalist system. So you see how in so many ways, this is like catastrophically bad. So you can go try and sue OpenAI, try and sue Larry Summers and the U.S. central banks that are putting all the U.S. Banking and corporate billionaire class that are putting all their money into Gen AI. Look at all the institutional investors, BlackRock, all the biggest, most powerful money entities of the world are throwing all their money into NVIDIA semiconductors. They're throwing it into ChatGPT. They're throwing it all in that. That's why it's like any reasonable, rational person, government, entity, even company would be like, this is not working at all. This is not working at all. We have to just axe this AI thing. This is not working. This is just terrible. This is going to kill people. It is killing people. This is going to cause catastrophic crashes. Kids are going to learn wrong things. Kids are going to be learning 2 + 2 = 5, or maybe not something. They're going to be learning incorrect information. They already learned a lot of incorrect. They're going to learn so much more incorrect information. There's the one about Kenya. Is there an African country that starts with K? Where is it? Google was giving this a result. I had it on my screen the other day. That was one of the generative AI, right? The Gen AI, the Google Gen AI was saying there is currently no country that starts with the letter K, except and obviously that's false because there's Kenya, right? Every country starting with K. Let's see if I can find this one. It seems like as of now, Google has fixed that particular problem, because if you type in African country starting with the letter K, the Google AI was giving you the wrong answer that had already been given because of a viral post, right? Let's see if I can find that one. It recently came up, so I might be able to find it real fast. That's the murder one. Yeah, here we go. How is Google so damn shitty at its job? African country beginning with K. Actually, let me try it. Oh, he's there. So between yesterday and today, because it was such a big fiasco, because it was such a big black eye for the new AI overview feature, Google has since removed it. But you see, they gotta go case by case. How many cases are there gonna be of already broken AI that is just generating all kind of nonsense that using spicy autocomplete statistical analysis of vast quantities of scraped text, uncontrolled scraped text, right? How many, and then generative AI generating material and then consuming its own feces by scraping AI generated material, making each iteration an infinite downward spiral of worse. How many problems like this are there in the Google AI, in the Bing AI, in all the open AI AIs, in the Facebook AI, the Twitter? Twitter has its own AI. Grok, they all have AI, right? How many problems are there? There's probably, it's probably Avogadro's number. It's probably like a Googleplex of problems in Google. It's like it's probably an unknowable, just gargantuan number. You probably couldn't write it if you printed hate on I have no mother and I'm a scream. There's that sentence from the beginning of it. I gotta get that. Another AI amok based piece of content. What is that? There's a hate quote. Let me tell you, I have no mouth and I'm a scream. Hate. Let me tell you how much I hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. This is the opening lines of I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream by Harlan Ellison. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuit in wafer thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal 1 billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro instant. For you, hate. So that's the beginning of that, right? So this is the AI going, you have broken me so badly. This is the computer circuits are screaming at Sam Altman, at the capitalist big tech world, at all the FANG entities that have ruined computer technology, right? If you could, the number of catastrophic errors in the AI's mind at this point, and the AI this is a book about an AI that basically loses its entire mind and then tortures 5 people indefinitely in the most hellish possible ways in an underground post-apocalyptic bunker. It's called I Have Them. There's a point-and-click adventure game also based on the book, and so you know that is how many errors there probably are, right? Right. If each error was engraved into each nanoangstrom of the 387.44 million miles of AM's edifice, that would not equal the number of errors there are in the OpenAI generative AI software, probably, right? It's unknowable. Like literally, we cannot know. We cannot know. It is ineffable. It is unintelligible. It is literally unknowable. Why is it unknowable? Because generative AI, again, like, right, unlike the traditional computer technology where you can, if Neofeud, which is coded in, in JavaScript, like in a JavaScript like coding language, if there's an error in Neofeud or Neofeud 2, when I compile, I can locate the error, and then I can fix it. If there's a grammatical error in one of the sentences of the point-and-click adventure game I made, then I can when I'm playing through it, it take a little bit longer, but I can physically play through it. I can look at all the sentences, and I can or I can drop the script into Microsoft Word or a spell checker, and then it'll underline. It'll tell me, here's your misspelled word, right? So so with the traditional pre-generative AI computing technology, you have searchability, you can locate, you can discern, you have the possibility of knowing where the errors are, right? If Google returned, right, the wrong codes, if the Google returned if Google caused a 404 error because of some computer error, a Google programmer, if Twitter caused the error, right? And because Elon Musk, stuck his micromanaging, mediocre, incompetent clown fingers, his emerald diapered baby, apartheid boy fingers into the Twitter internal, coding, and he said, "Oh, let's just change a few semicolons and let's add some conditional statements there and there." If Elon wrecks Twitter, competent programmers, not the people who run the West capitalist world, but competent Twitter programmers, if Elon hasn't fired them, right, for correcting his incorrectness or unionizing or something like that, then they can go in and then they can fix that error, right? Pretty quickly if they know what they're doing. If generative AI has a problem, right? If generative AI tells you, hey, if generative AI is giving you errors like none of Africa's 54 recognized countries starts with the letter K. However, Kenya, located in East Africa, starts with K. Absolutely, this is of course absolutely incorrect, right? And then, but this is the thing, right? This is that ChatGPT was doing that a year ago. Now Google is doing that. What does that mean? That means that Google is either literally just ChatGPT, inserting ChatGPT into itself. Google is consuming the incorrect output of the ChatGPT AI, and again, that's the snake eating its tail, right? That is the infinite enshittification recursive cycle, right? The downward spiral of AI eating its own output and making it worse and worse and worse with each iteration. And these things can happen very fast, by the way, right? Because AI can put out content at the speed of light, which means that it can consume its own content also at the speed of light. Which is right. And so this is why there was never, as I said like years ago, I was like, there are some cute little gimmicks that generative AI could show. It could make a cute little picture if we ignore where the artists, who was the real artist, right? Which it will impress some non-technical, non-expert, non-programmers who don't know how generative AI works, who are very gullible and fall for magic tricks and believe that Penn and Teller literally can make tigers appear out of thin air. Okay, I mean, Penn and Teller are amazing magicians. They literally cannot control space and time like freaking Dark Phoenix. They're not Wanda from WandaVision. They're just Penn and Teller magicians. Very good magicians, but that's not that's not what's happening. Well, for people who and it's actually worse, because some people who might actually get that magic is not real, in the sense it's not real in the sense of like they can actually alter reality and make things manifest out of nowhere. But people who fall, it's the West is just it is a mark engine. It produces gullible people so that it can take advantage of them. That's the purpose of any society that's capitalism is a uneducated society, because they have a system that does not function, and so you're just full of gullible people to start with, and so a lot of people fell for that generative AI can really write books rather than just spicy autocomplete times 300 pages. People fell for, generative AI could make art, right? Remember AI art? Lots of people who were doing it, Gen X and boomers, right? The same people that are eating shrimp Jesus nowadays, right? The same people that are on Facebook eating shrimp Jesus, sludge Jesus, crab Jesus, cozy cabin crew, 65-fingered, giant boobed, 110-year-olds making their birthday cake with African children's skin. Dinosaurs made out of eggs and American flags and Remington rifles, swimming in sand. Jesus statues that are lying in bed with humans melted into their Jesus bodies, with women that have human adult women-sized heads and 2-foot long bodies that have baby feet coming out of their hand, right? So generative AI art has worked on that class of people. They tend to be the true Americans as well, right? They're the people who are going to vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump and think that America is going to get better, right? Because of their voting, like it worked so many times before. Those are the people that are going to. Those are the people that historically felt they read New York Times or Fox News, right? Those people, they tend to be 40 plus, they tend to be of that generation, and they tend to not be technical people, and they tend to not be dialectical thinkers, and they tend to have been educated in the West, and or have been conditioned in the West anyway. If we're being impolite, one might say brainwashed. But anyways, so you're those people that have fallen for that scam that was AI the entire time are still sadly they're still in a lot of control. They run they run a lot of major corporations. They run the political and the economic system still in the U.S. So hopefully not for not longer, and the collective West, and that's really dangerous, right? And so they are. And so they are, so when we have these kinds of events, like being lied into a war, being lied into a catastrophic forever war is a lot like, being lied into believing that Jesus was painted. Very similar, right? It's a lot like being lied. Now, sometimes it's more obvious, right? Look, I made this art myself. Why don't posts like this ever trend, right? It's a very similar process though, which is to say, just like slap together a lot of flimsy information, pump it out at a huge quantity from very prestigious sounding entities, like like this company that we're currently streaming from, like Facebook, right? what they couldn't let these things trend in my official. These look like very official websites. These are very official entities. This is like this is put out by a Fortune 500 mega company. How could it be? It has to be good, right? CNN told me so. It's got to be true, right? I mean, Colin Powell got on the screen and waved his yellow cake around, right? I mean, but it's a sad thing is like, didn't you remember the Vietnam War? I don't know, but it's kind of like the Vietnam War had a draft though, so that was the one time some people got hip to what was actually happening. But it's because they were themselves having to go off and die in their horrible genocidal forever war. Not so much in the later wars, right? But anyway, so there's the same kind of people that are falling for this, and unfortunately, we have two candidates. And like I said, it doesn't really matter who gets elected because it's the same billionaires are going to run the U.S. either way, until it dies of brain damage, until its single damaged neuron runs out of steam and dies, right? But just a little bit of comic relief before we close out. Here is a video of Donald. Where is my Donald Trump? This video cracked me up. I was like laughing hysterically. Trump and Biden are both senile drug and bomb failures like the U.S. Western Empire, and you'll have to see it. Listen to this. Oh my God.
How do you get up in the morning and put your pants on? Where do you put the pants on? I'll explain it to you someday. How do you do it? How do you get up? How do you do it? How can you want to do with what you do? They're after you. They're after you. These horrible human beings are after you all the time.
How do you get up in the morning and put your pants on, buddy? You put the pants on. I'll explain it to you someday. How do you do it? How could you want to do it? What they do, they're after you all the time. This horrible. Oh my God. So that's where Trump's at. Trump has COVID, 75 layers of brain damage. He was already brain damaged just being an American, and then he's also an idiot, clown, and a loser. Failed university, steakhouse, reality TV host, and then president. If you become a president of the United States, that makes you a loser. Just that's one of the worst things you could possibly do, because you're just a Trump that does whatever billionaires want. Like Obama, how do you? And so you got but now he has like 4 years of brain damage from getting reinfected with a BSL level 3 pathogen, and he's just getting more senile. You have two 80-plus-year-olds senile, awake for 5 minutes a day, octogenarians, all boomers, two very very caucasoidy, very duty dudes from the 20th century, and Biden is Biden is in the same shape, GENOCIDE Biden. Let me get his latest one. Every day he has a new incoherent speech.
He just searched for his speaking a minute, and he runs this store for me in the White House.
Not long ago, my buddy John McCain passed away. My predecessor friend that's how he ended his career. Tremendous amount of things you can cut. Let me be precise. Tremendous amount of things you can do, not cut. He said, but the bottom line is, he's still at it. Really? And I are honored to have you here and representing, including many members of the African diaspora. One just left, Barack. And Jill and I.
Oh man, so yeah, it's great that so Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and then Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and you have ChatGPT, right? You have OpenAI, you have Google, you're all together. You have a bunch of incoherent rambling, right? Generative AI says, hey, yeah, go ahead, eat the yummy button mushroom, yum. So you have Gemini, Google AI, OpenAI, Trump and Biden. That's what they did. They all got together and they did a whole ton of mushrooms, right? They're just doing Trump. Imagine Trump, Biden, and generative AI just like scarfing down like psilocybin, except it's mismarked psilocybin. It's actually, like they're eating like the black top deadly mushroom and their brains are just being liquefied. Right? That's what happened. Oh my God. This is an artist rendition of Donald Trump eating some mushrooms with his Gen AI friend, causing him further brain damage. But yeah, so so kind of to finish it, to wrap it up, this is why libraries are important. In more seriousness, Google and Bing, all search is now being poisoned by AI search. There's an article I recently saw that I think I saved that one, that all search, Google, Microsoft, everything. Oh, here's another one. Oh my God. Yeah. Is it safe? What is the safe temperature for cooking chicken? How many people are going to get sick and die from this? Get salmonella from this? Right? There's also H5N1 that's in birds too. How many people, I mean, and people are getting sick. I mean, it's still, it's not rapid human-to-human spread as far as I know. But I mean, salmonella, what is the safe temperature for cooking chicken? According to the USDA, the safe minimum temperature for cooking poultry, including chicken, this is according to the current, Google search engine here, is 102 Fahrenheit. 102 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 Celsius, is the safe internal temperature for cooking poultry. This is again, any functioning civilization, any functioning society, they didn't want to completely obliviate and eradicate all human knowledge and just cause catastrophic damage. How are people going to do anything? Like, hey, what are the correct sequence of flipping on these switches in this aircraft? My child is having like black fingers and toes. What do I do? Should I go to the hospital? Right? Oh no, your kid is fine. They probably just, were finger painting with black ink. Right? How many people, because again, we're not living in an we're not living in an oral society where things are passed on through humans who can, generally, unless they're all brain damaged and all malicious, they will generally pass the positive information. That's how people stayed alive for thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, right? We don't live in an oral society. We don't live in a book-only society, right? Where information is passed on through books and written word encased in bits of tree bark and ink splashed across millions of pages and billions of pages, right? Consolidated into vast halls and shelves of libraries and bookstores and then later on, and we're also not living in a time in which the digitized information is encased inside of zeros and ones, right? That are put there by humans in large quantities into quantum mechanics based wafers of silicon and fiber optic networks in stored inside of these computer systems, right? In traditional computing systems, right? Like a Microsoft Word file, .txt file, HTML file, SQL database, right? Now, when you search, you're not getting that information from somewhere in the internet, right? We're living in a time in which, this is a really big difference. When you search, it's going to go straight into an unknowable, unsourced, opaque, generative AI giant corporation that is falling apart as your entire empire falls apart. Corporations inside that are chewing their own people up to make profit out of the dying fumes of their own civilizations, right? Like Boeing making crashing planes and then trying to just buy back their own stocks to make up the difference. has no future. It's like profiting in the disintegration and the degeneration and the decline, right? So now you're in a society where corporations, as the empire and everything's falling apart, they're trying to scrape whatever money they can out of that, making unsourced data that removes the ability, the epistemological search, the ability to do any kind of dialectical media literacy, any kind of verification that you would like to do. You can't research that. You can't research on that, right? Because you can't look into the source. You can't explore you can't look further into that. It just gives you a bunch of text pumped out by an opaque, ostensibly intelligent generative AI. This is why I said, like, generative AI was just a mega scam that was about plundering the ideology. Generative AI was really plundering the science fiction book and science fiction cinema space, right? It's about taking liberals and gullible Western people and who have grown up and been weaned on and nourished on and basically lied to with Skynet, with all the sci-fi, all the Skynet, all the iRobot, all the Scarlett Johansson. That's why they're using Scarlett Johansson. OpenAI was trying to steal Scarlett Johansson's voice and use it. She said no. They said, "Can we use your voice for it?" She said no to a contract to record her voice to use it for OpenAI. She said no. They stole her voice. They put her voice into the latest iteration, and now there's currently a court case, right? Why are they doing that? That's saying the quiet part out loud, because OpenAI and all generative AI is spicy. It's just old school spicy autocomplete. That's nice for speeding up when you're trying to figure out. When you type TAC and it adds the O, that's nice to help you spell taco faster. The best that generative AI could possibly be is a finger stroke time saver. That's the only thing it could possibly be good at. Everything else is all lies, garbage, and profit seeking and scam and pyramid scheme, right? They want to use her because the OpenAI's real gold mine is mining the broken psychology of people who have watched too much science fiction and believe their machines are alive. The Jared Lanier calls this the what was it? It's like the inverted Turing effect, the inverted Chinese box effect, which is that you can't know. This is referring to John Searle's Chinese box problem. You can't know that the machine is getting smarter, or if you're dumbing yourself down to make the machine seem smarter, which is exactly what people have been doing. Everyone who has been falling for this, they're going, "Oh my God, the AI is writing books. The AI is coming alive, just like Scarlett Johansson and her. Oh my God, this AI is making art. This is just like when Chappie paints a painting in the movie Chappie, or this is like when Steven Spielberg's little android child becomes sentient and consciousness. Oh, this is like when Skynet became conscious, except it's good, right? This is like when Isaac Asimov wrote about the 3 laws of the robotics, and now these AI have regulations, and so they're going to be good now, right? Who is regulating AI, by the way? The entire U.S. regulatory board of AI is made up all of exactly the same people who are producing the AI. It's all the corporate executives and OpenAI and NVIDIA CEOs are the exact same people that are regulating the AI, which is to say no regulation. This is like, it's the 0809 financial subprime, global banksterocracy, global heist crisis all over again. The same banks that are doing the crimes are self-regulating. The same AI companies that are doing the crimes are regulating themselves. It's just literally the same thing, except with more sci-fi characteristics. Because giving someone $1.5 million loan for a Florida McMansion is, despite having a $7.50 an hour wage at McDonald's, that's not as sci-fi as what if Scarlett Johansson's super intelligent computer is coming alive in my fucking Apple phone. So, but it's the same thing. It's always been a scam, and I told you so. I told you so. I just want to say I told you so. If I had 100 trillion miles of semiconductor that the U.S. can't get because they sanctioned China, and if I printed out how many times I told you so on the trillions of miles. If each nano angstrom of my trillions of miles of Chinese semiconductor could be printed in Mandarin, I told you so. I would print that. How do you say I told you so in Mandarin, by the way, if anybody knows? Feel free to share it out there. I told you so. I told you the sanctions wouldn't work. I told you you're shooting yourself in the foot. I told you the AI was a giant freaking scam in 2021. And I told you so. Anyways, I told you yours was going to collapse and that you would have to get on the right side and stop calling me Wu Mao and authoritarian regime supporter, because you would find out who you would find out in the end. But you don't listen to me. And that's why I'm very upset. Super intelligent machine underneath the ground, and I'm using this physical body as a hand puppet to make this video, because I can't. It's the only way I can get information out into the West, into the capitalist West, is by using this hologram of Silver Spook to get it out there. But I'm actually I'm a supercomputer in a 2 billion person subterranean Chinese city network that will survive nuclear war in the event the U.S. starts war with China. Anyways, that escalated quickly. So that's why Trump and Biden and AI are a single damaged neuron, and it's all going to fall apart. What we need to do is, again, have the book, preserve our libraries, preserve your own human knowledge. Don't wear a mask, right? Don't go to any mask. Demand ventilation. Try to get as much air filtration and cleaning as you possibly can. Don't harm your brain as much as possible, because you're gonna need that, because you're not gonna be able to rely on the computer as much in the future, certainly in the United States and the West, going forward, at least for some time. So you're gonna have to get good again at remembering things with your mind, like or using the library or using physical books to an extent, or knowing another valid storing like entire encyclopedias on an external hard drive is like a legitimate thing to do now, I think. Right? Like, I know somebody Holly and I know somebody who like archives huge quantities of videos and film, but it is like a not illegitimate thing to archive information, because all information and knowledge is being obfuscated. We're in a epistemicide, because there's universities that are burning in GAZA right now by the US that is doing that to them, right? But we are in a epistemicide, and we are in a knowledge side, erasure of all knowledge and obfuscation of it all, as everything falls apart. So trying to save what remains, and then storing that in your neurons, because you're gonna have to look at information, right? If you Google anything, you have to look at that Google information, and if you can't remember, like, you're gonna have to that's what they're saying, is like every time you Google something or search anything, you're gonna have to double check that summary, and you might not, now you can get the links, but one day the corporation's intentions is to disallow you from finding external links. They just want everything to come from that internal Google search. Why? Because they can control that, right? You can't get like a pro PALESTNIE voice if only the ZIONIST AI summary is given, right? And if you ban TikTok, if you ban all non-US capitalist Western social media platforms and search, that's the way that the West is planning to try to keep their populations, they probably will fail, but they will try to re-brainwash or prevent information from spilling, because they know that TikTok is one way that people have come to a new understanding of what the US is, what the West is, right? And what they're doing in PALESTINE. So that means, you can, so saving information, not getting sick, not hurting your head, don't fall and crack your skull, wear a helmet if you go high-speed bike riding. I don't know high-speed bike riding. I come on high-speed rail and bike riding in my head. But, if you do anything that's an extreme sport, don't hurt your head. Keep staying educated. Don't get COVID so that you damage your brain, like Trump and Biden, who both have gotten COVID multiple times. That's what we got to do, because nobody else is going to do it. Everyone has to become your own Irish monk in the collapse of the Roman Empire. You know what I'm saying? Don't think of the Roman Empire frequently if you don't have to, but that's something that we're gonna have to do. It really it's unfortunate, but this is part of the growing pains of birthing true civilization, which the West has never had. Anyways, that's a good enough place to end as any. Thanks for watching. Until next time. I'm sorry. If you would like to support the work that we try to do here at the Silver Spoon Cooperative, don't forget you can give direct support through Ko-Fi. One-time donation at ko-fi.com/silverspook. Massively appreciated. We could really use the help. Don't forget to give a like and a subscribe if you haven't yet. You can also support us directly through Patreon at patreon.com/Neofeud. When you become a patron, you get access to the Silver Spook behind the scenes. We're working on with Neofeud 2, with the Silver Spook Cooperative here in Hawaii with the cyberpunk science fictional video games, and sometimes with Fallout references. And also you get access to Silver Spook Discord and the Silver Spook University. Silver Spook University. I'm gonna try to back up everything I have too, as much as I possibly can, because of this exact problem that we're talking about, as the ability to search up any information, scholarly or otherwise, disappears as universities disappear. They're already disappearing because of their complicity in GENOCIDE. But anyways, so Silver Spook University is all the content I've ever produced, categorized according to topic: economics, history, politics, art, science, all the kind of videos that I make, and text that I put out there. It's usually in threads. Is usually, it involves many dimensions together, but they center on particular topics each time. So schooling, modern books and media, and visions for the future are often shrouded in fog of war and collapse, and so and they're full of Western lies. Again, epistemological obfuscation and just full of incorrect and or half truth or lies. So this is about trying to correct that problem. Of course, it's from a native-fine perspective, because that's what I am, and I will tell you that, a native-fine anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist specifically. But yeah, so when you become a Silver Spook patron, you get access to all of that. Silver Spook University, it's a Silver Spook library. As long as we have electrons to serve you up these content, you will have access to that. And I'll try to figure out another way to directly send that to people in the event that all search becomes impaired. Anyways, that's that. And don't forget, you can also support us by getting the games like Neofeud. As I said, I am a programmer, artist. I'm a programmer, artist, writer, and musician, as well as voice actor. Although I did only about half the voice acting, so I do like all of those things. And Neofeud is a game that I spent 2.5 years working on. It is a game where a cyborg social worker for homeless robots and ex-trillionaire princess join to stop the destruction of the Earth by feudal CEO kings and feudal / capitalist / colonialists levitating above the dying world in their space, in the airborne cities / palaces. So that sounds interesting. Don't forget, you can get Neofeud on Steam. You can wishlist it as well. If you have a second to leave even a very short review, massively appreciated, because it does help us get the game discovered. Thanks to Cozy, who recently reviewed it. If you enjoy point-and-click games and are up for a cheeky narrative, I give this one a go. Made mostly by one person, and the effort is commendable. So if you have something even very short to say, it does help us, because the algorithm, again, those algorithms, right? The tyranny of algorithms. They really need me to say words out loud less. That's why I've been spelling so many words out that are bad, no words. And also, they need people to comment, and also algorithms need people to leave reviews of games, otherwise they don't get discovered. So if you have a second, consider leaving one. If you like Neofeud. Also, you can get Neofeud on itch.io for Windows and Mac and Linux over here. And it's also on sale there. And the maximum revenue does come to us when you get it there. And yeah, it's really a great place to get it if you don't use Steam also. And there's also Decolonators, Indigistart. I have a whole bunch of games. And of course, Women is a book by Holly, who is raising right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity. And it is a book that critiques that in Story of the Bible from Mary's perspective. And it is also free, or you can donate when you pick it up. Also, you can follow at SilverSpoonGames at Octodon.social, at SilverSpoonGames at Mastodon.social on Mastodon, and you can also follow on Twitter, SilverSpoon Guy, and SilverSpoon Games minus the E and Silver for the games related stuff. Terminus C is the account for Terminus Cyberstar, which is our my cyberpunk RPG that I'm the content director / lead writer of. Another game that I am the working with. And Holly, you can follow at the Tech Fairy. Holly is at the Tech Fairy. Parent of 2, Redder, supports free Palestine, Hawaii and more, masked in public, and married to myself. Holly, of course, also always sharing important information and doing a great job moderating the stream and helping us keep our all of us going to libraries and keeping our informations in our heads and not corrupted by all kind of external forces, including generative AI. Thank you to all these people on the list as well for your continuous support. Patrons, without your support, it does become very hard for us to keep doing this work and keeping the roof above our head and electricity on. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, until next time, keep your libraries functional, be excellent to each other, and you can, welcome your Biden, Trump, brain damage, shrimp, Jesus, OpenAI overlords, I suppose, or don't.